The Broward Sheriff's Office prides itself on being one of the most professional, accountable and transparent public safety agencies in the nation. Transparency Promise provides the most accurate, up-to-date and accessible information regarding our policing efforts and disciplinary actions to the public for an independent assessment of our work. This approach to transparency builds trust with the communities we serve and provides for an open and honest dialogue that ensures we live up to the excellence the public and good policing demand.
July 2, 2024. Arrest warrant provides more details in double killing, attempted suicide in Deerfield Beach. The Broward Sheriff's Office confirmed Andre Lons, 27, has been charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder after he fatally shot his girlfriend and their infant son before turning the gun on himself. According to the warrant, deputies responded to the 4000 block of Eastridge Drive around 5:45 a.m. on June 13 after Lons called 911, requesting help, saying in a muffled voice that he shot himself. Authorities said a baby could be heard crying in the background before the sound of 2 gunshots were heard and then the call disconnected. According to the warrant, a neighbor called 911 minutes later to report that there was a man at her front door that was bleeding and he was holding a gun. Another person then called 911, saying a bleeding man who was holding a handgun had just approached his vehicle. Deputies arrived to the area a short time later and were flagged down by bystanders, who pointed at Lons, who was bleeding profusely from the mouth and covered in blood, the warrant states. According to the warrant, Lons was sitting in the driveway of a home and had a gun pointed at his head as deputies told him to drop his weapon. Authorities said Lons disobeyed the deputies' commands and ran toward them at one point, pointing at his head and telling the deputies to shoot him. According to the warrant, Lons was detained and transported by Broward Sheriff Fire Rescue to Broward Health North to be treated for a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the lower part of his chin. Lons was initially listed in critical condition. According to the warrant, later in the morning, around 8:22 a.m., an AC repairman flagged down deputies because he saw blood on the door and pathway leading up to a home where he was responding to a service call. Deputies entered the home after no one answered the door and discovered a woman, later identified as Marina Guadagnino, dead on the bed in the master bedroom. She had been shot multiple times. Authorities said an infant, identified as Andre Lons 3, was found dead in the bassinet next to the bed with a gunshot wound to the right side of his head and a gunshot wound to his abdomen. According to the warrant, Lons, Guadagnino, and their baby had just moved into the home a week prior. Authorities said Lons had been recently discharged from the U.S. Army and the couple had been together for about 3 years. A motive for the double shooting remains unclear. As of Tuesday morning, Lons was not appearing in the jail online database and it appeared he was still hospitalized. July 10, 2023. The man who beat another for movie seats is now sitting in jail. Detectives with the Broward Sheriff's Office Violent Crimes Unit with assistance from the Fort Lauderdale Police Department have arrested 27-year-old Jesse Montez Thornton II for the violent attack of another man over movie theater seats that occurred last July. The victim, Mark Cohen, told detectives that shortly before 9:56 p.m., on Monday, July 10, he arrived with his wife at the movie theater, located at 2315 North Federal Highway in Pompano Beach. The victim had purchased VIP tickets that included assigned seating for a film. When Cohen and his wife arrived at the movie theater, he noticed an unknown adult male and adult female in his seats. Cohen politely asked the subject, Jesse Montez Thornton II, to move from their seats. Witnesses said that's when Thornton became hostile. A video captured the moment the verbal altercation turned physical. In the heated moment, Cohen loses his balance and falls down the steps. Thornton is seen standing above Cohen repeatedly punching him in the face, until witnesses rushed to Cohen's aid and pulled Thornton off him. Thornton and the adult female left the theater. Cohen suffered several injuries to his head and face. He was transported to a local hospital to receive treatment. BSO detectives worked this case for months. The video and information about this callous attack received national and international media attention and generated leads, including an anonymous tip through Broward Crime Stoppers. Through investigative means, detectives identified Jesse Montez Thornton II as the subject in this case. On Thursday, September 28, Thornton was located in the city of Fort Lauderdale and taken into custody. He was transported to BSO Main Jail and faces 1 count of aggravated battery with great bodily harm. Heavy machinery thefts leads to hefty criminal charges. A Fort Lauderdale man is accused of operating an organized scheme to defraud by selling rented Heavy machinery to unsuspecting victims following an investigation by the Broward Sheriff's Office Burglary Apprehension Team, BAT. BSO's Central Broward Crime Suppression Team and other law enforcement partners. According to detectives, Jerome Downing and others associated with him rented equipment from numerous Home Depot stores across Florida under false names and then sold the rented items on an online marketplace. Home Depot stores in Oakland Park and West Park, along with several other Broward County jurisdictions, were victimized. BSO detectives worked with the Florida Office of Statewide Prosecution, which estimates that the scheme resulted in losses of more than $460,000 to Home Depot and additional losses to buyers of the stolen merchandise. In all, investigators documented the theft and sale of 21 pieces of heavy machinery, like pictured above. On Tuesday, BSO detectives and Miami-Dade organized retail crime detectives arrested Downing in Fort Lauderdale on a warrant for 24 criminal charges related to the scheme. Detectives continue to investigate this case and additional arrests are expected. March 8, 2024. Father charged with child's fentanyl death faces additional drug trafficking charges with accomplice. A Coral Springs man charged with manslaughter in the death of his son and his accomplice is being held without bond on charges of possession and conspiracy to traffic narcotics. Wendy Preval, 30, and Robert Rosem, 22. Involving Homeland Security investigations, she. Miami office. Both are expected to be prosecuted federally. Preval was initially arrested 2 months ago on charges after his son, 1-year-old Zaire Senitus, was exposed to a lethal amount of drugs, including fentanyl. Preval was out on bond for these charges when he was arrested again on Monday for drug trafficking. An undercover BSO detective made several controlled purchases of fentanyl from Preval and CO defendant Robert Rosem of Pompano Beach. On March 20, BSO detectives served search warrants at Preval's residence at 6120 Wiles Road, Coral Springs, and a shed he used for his illegal business at 101 Northeast 31st St. in Pompano Beach. Investigators seized a large amount of fentanyl, an AK-style rifle with ammunition, a handgun, and Rosem's 2015 BMW. The initial arrest of Preval and Shanika Dean, the parents of Zaire Senitus, occurred on January 9 after a lengthy investigation by BSO Homicide and Crime Scene Unit investigators. The investigation revealed that the parents failed to provide proper care, supervision, and services necessary for their child, resulting in his death due to the lethal intoxication of drugs, including fentanyl. Dean and Preval were also charged with possession of fentanyl at the time.
Equality before the law, also known as equality under the law. Equality in the eyes of the law, legal equality, or legal egalitarianism, is the principle that all people must be equally protected by the law. The rule of law is a political ideal that all citizens and institutions within a country, state, or community are accountable to the same laws, including lawmakers and leaders. It is sometimes stated simply as no one is above the law.